There are a lot of ways. You can start recording yourself and see how you record yourself, and then watch that video and see how you are in that presentation. You can hire your speech coach, or you can hire somebody to come in and train your company, train your team. We surveyed 1,200 full-time employees in America in 9 different regions around the country.
Welcome, everyone, to the 1% Edge podcast. Here we have the privilege of meeting with amazing guests and having conversations to understand their journeys on how they got 1% better throughout their careers. And for today, I'm really excited about the topic because it's one I could really use some help on. We're going to discuss how to be a better communicator. And to help us with that, we have Ryan Avery. Hi, Ryan.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
To give a little background on Ryan, he's a 9-time world record holder, a 2-time best-selling author, and at 25, Ryan won the World's Championship of Public Speaking, where he competed against 30,000 people across 167 countries to win. Quite an amazing feat, Ryan.
Thank you. Yeah, I know if you're watching this, I know I look like I'm 12. And if you're listening to this, it sounds like I'm 15. I am almost 40, so a little different now, though. But yes.
Hey, you know what? When you hit 70, you're going to be happy that you still sound like you're 50.
Very true. Very true. Yeah.
It's all perspective. I always laugh when I talk to people that are older than me. They're like, "Oh my God, you're so young." Then you talk to someone younger than you, like, "Oh my, aren't you retired?"
Totally. Yeah.
So it's all perspective. All right. Communication is something I could definitely use help on.
Okay.
English is my second language,
Right.
which is my big excuse. But quite frankly, whether it's nerves or whatever, I'm a lousy communicator sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm good. Sometimes I'm terrible. So let's start out with, what do you mean by being a good communicator? What does that mean to you?
Yeah. First, understanding what communication is. People always tell me, "Oh, communication's changed over the years." Communication has never changed. It will never change. Communication, com is the prefix in Latin, which means with. Uni means one. Ation is the suffix in Latin, which means to take action. So it's literally with one action. It is the transfer of action. It's the transfer of information. What has changed is are the modes of communication, right? So you can Slack someone the Instagram screenshot of the Facebook conversation you had on email. It's this long telephone thing that we've done in the digital space now that has hurt the word communication. But communication has never changed. It never will change. It's always the transfer of information. So I hear a lot of leaders, they say to me, so I'll have some private sessions with, and they'll go, I have communicated to this. I have communicated this over and over. I have communicated this. And what they're ultimately telling me is they haven't communicated it. What they've done is they've simply spoken it. Because you've spoken it does not mean you have communicated it. And what we have to do is we have to pay attention. Good communicators understand that the words that we use, they have to be used differently based off of who you're interacting with. Some people you might have to use more words with. Some people you might have to use bigger words with. Some people you might have to be making it super simple. So you have to change the way that you communicate based off of the person or the group that you're speaking to, so the information gets transferred. I can't tell you how many times I hear leaders think or say, "I'm a great communicator," but really all they are is a good speaker. They speak, that's it. They don't necessarily communicate.
All right. There's a lot there, and it's really good stuff. So I'm gonna try to break it down a little bit.
Okay.
On the communication side, and I learned this in marriage counseling,
Yeah.
and I've never forgotten it. And
Okay.
one of the things that the counselor said, she said, that which is said is not always heard, and that which is heard is not always understood. And then she goes, and then to have proper communication, you got to go, your partner needs to speak. You need to hear them, and you need to understand them. Absolutely. I've always kind of rattled that in my head when I think about communication. What are your thoughts on that?
I would completely agree. You have a good therapist, I would say. Yeah. My wife and I's therapist, my partner and I's therapist, I'm grateful for good communicators like that who teach us things like that. I would agree completely.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to what you said, because sometimes people say, I told them, I said it, I put it in an email, And like you said, they express those words outwardly, but it lacks the confirmation of understanding.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
So let's unpack that piece of it. So what tactics do you recommend, or ideas or thoughts? So
Yeah.
like if I'm a leader in an organization and I have a message for the folks, how do I confirm understanding? How do I know they got it and understood it and we're all heading in the right direction?
There's a big conversation right now, and it's been going on for a while about the idea of vulnerability and being vulnerable, and it's important to be vulnerable. And I like this, but sometimes it is misunderstood. To me, the conversation is not about vulnerability, it's about relatability. It's about making sure that you relate to the people that you are communicating to. And so one of the best ways to do that is relate to them, right? So figure out where they're at. If they're angry, let's first figure out the anger. If they're really jazzed up and pumped up, let's be jazzed up and pumped up. I can't tell you too how many leaders I interact with who so what I want, some things that I do is I'll go and I'll observe leaders for the day because they want to improve their communication skills. So I'll improve them, and then we work on a speech usually that they're giving. Well, this one leader, the team is like pumped up, it's super excited. It's like a Thursday. Actually, might have been a Wednesday. It's a Thursday, or it's mid of the week, and he comes out and it's just like low energy, really low energy, where he's just like, hey, before we get started, I want to like talk about a few things. And he completely brings down the energy of the group that was really excited. So you have to do a good job of making sure you are in control of where that energy goes. So there's 3 types of energy that I recommend. So there's high, medium, and low. Okay. So high, medium, and low energy. Um, there's those speakers, they're those communicators. We all know them. I call them, they're always, I call these the escalator speakers, the escalator communicators. They're the ones who are always like, hey everybody, today's a great day, Monday, right? And you're like, I hate you, dude. No. Okay. Then there are those basement speakers. I call them basement speakers. They always have low energy. No matter what happens, they're always like, yeah, but what happens if all these, and they're always like, I don't want to talk to, I don't
Like
want
a
to talk to
negative Nelly.
Negative Nelly. Yeah. So what I like to be, what I like to promote is be what's called the roller coaster communicator. So you want all levels. You want high, medium, and low. Always start out with medium, so then you know where to take them on the next level. And then if you are spreading that energy throughout your communication, you're able to grasp a lot more people, and then you're able to not necessarily, you originally match their flow, but then you take them on the ride and the journey along the way. That's how I do it.
Okay. So that kind of relates like to tone, right? Because you got your energy and how it flows. I mean, like sometimes people, they'll slow down their speech to make sure it pulls people in, or they'll talk softer at certain points. And
Yes.
other times I've heard them talk, more louder or more expressively.
So there's 3 components. So there's 3 components to communication. I call them the 3 T's: text, tone, time. Okay, text, the words being used; tone, how those words are being used; time, when those words are being used. Now, some people, they'll ask me questions like, "What do I do with my hands?" or like, "How should I do vocal variety?" And this is my thought. Okay, let's say let's say you invite me to a baseball game, right? We go to a Dodgers game, we have a really good time, we're drinking beer. I don't really drink beer, but I like you. We're gonna go hang out. Like, it's loud, it's crazy. We're like, I don't really know a lot. I mean, there's a lot of like sports fans out there. I am not one of those. I more am in a different state, but I like sporting activities. I like to go. Okay, so we're like having a good time. We're yelling, we're cheering, we're doing that, right? Let's say then the next day, um, you and I decide to go to a museum or an art gallery because we like art for some reason. I don't know. We want to go. So we go and we decide to drink a martini, which is more my style. We talk a little bit softer. We question each other. We're like, why is this art $14 million? We don't know really what's going on. What I'm saying is, adapting and adjusting to the environment. You don't have to change who you are. You have to adapt to the environment that you're in. If I go to the baseball game and I pull out a martini shaker and I say seating and I'm whispering like this, you're going to be like, I'm never going to invite this guy to a baseball game. If I go to the art gallery and I'm like, this art is amazing, you would be like, holy crap. It's like, stop. What? You're embarrassing me. So it's not changing who you are. It's matching who you are in the environment that you're in. And it goes along with the person that you're talking to, or the group that you're interested in, or the audience that you're presenting to. you got to match them. You got to match it. It's really ultimately what it comes down to.
Okay, I buy that. It makes a lot of sense. You mentioned text being the first T, right?
Yes.
So the words that we use in the message that we're trying to convey,
Right.
any advice there? Because sometimes I see people use big words that
Mm.
totally don't match their personality.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Out of every country I've worked in, out of every client that I've worked with, leaders that I've worked with, the rule stays true that simple always wins. When we look at the most spread messages of all time, right? If we look at Jesus, if we look at Muhammad, if we look at Buddha, if we look at any religious text of all time, no matter if you're religious or not, what do all those leaders have in common? They made their message simple, because simple is shareable. And that's what communication is. Communication is the transfer of information. So if I can't repeat what you said, I didn't understand it, therefore you didn't communicate it well to me. So simplicity in the text that we use is really important. I say this because there are a lot of educated leaders that I work with who believe that they need to use bigger words or share things to present themselves as educated. And although that it does present themselves as educated, it presents themselves as disconnected because they're not connecting with the people who are like us, who I'm not a Harvard PhD, right? I talk like this. This is how I communicate. So if you can break it down to the simplest form and use the words that are the simplest, yet that still have power, that are still impactful, that still add value, that's going to be the most important. Like even this one word. I I've been hearing this one a lot lately with, and people know this one. I still hear it though. The other day, I'm training this team, and the leader comes out and he goes, "Hey, team, I love our team. We're a great team, but we need to do a better job in." And then he goes into sharing it. The word "but" there simply says, "We're not really that great of a team. I don't really like it." So it's an opportunity to use language and use the word "and" there. Hey, y'all, we're a really great team, and one thing that we can do to keep improving is this. The word "but" versus "and" can significantly change the way that people are interpreting or your influence, you're communicating, making sure that they're taking in the information. So see how like one simple word can make all the difference in the way that I'm communicating to my team.
Yeah, I try to when I do workshops and I'm trying to get them to ask better sales questions. One of the things I try to remind them, I go, look, I'm not trying to change who you are, but words have meaning. Words do matter.
Yeah, I say words are free. They cost a lot.
It's
They cost
I
us.
also I invested in this small business, and this Monday staff call. One of the topic was communication. It just happened to be the topic,
Mm,
and the reason my partner that runs the business brought it up was the fact that there are times where customers communicate very poorly or express a lot of anger or unhappy with the situation.
yeah.
And this is going to get to the idea of modes of communication.
Mm,
And they may text or email that. And then, our poor communication is to text and email them right back.
mm,
So I'd love to talk a little bit about mode because this was our feeling. Like it's very, very hard to convey
mhm.
tone behind your message. And it's very, very easy to argue back over text or email because there's no
Yeah.
personal person standing in front of you or
Mm,
on the phone with you.
mm,
So our message to them was find ways to call them or see them face to face and
mm,
address their concern
mhm,
without becoming emotionally, charged and just
mhm.
firing back at them. Some thoughts on different modes at the right time. Sorry.
Two things. First, we have one rule in our company that if you're questioning the tone, pick up the phone. Okay. So if you're questioning the tone, pick up the phone. So if you're typing an email and you're like, is this good? Nope. You don't send that email, you pick up the phone. If you are getting an email and you received it and you're like, this seems a little strange. I don't really know the tone of this email, pick up the phone. If you're questioning the tone, pick up the phone. That is an absolute requirement in our company. The second thing to really that changed my business, changed the way that I interact with people, a mode of communication. Two best questions to ask at any end of sales calls is, or are, when do you want me to follow up and how? I will not tell you how many times I train sales teams and sales leaders who have been selling for decades. And what they do is they put their formula on the client. I have also, so when I ask this question, I have done deals where CEOs of large companies have said to me, text me on Monday. And I'm like, text you on Monday? What's your cell? You're going to give me your cell phone? And now here's the thing that I do, right? I used to send out a PDF and I would put it in a nice email and I would make it look pretty. The CEO doesn't want a long email and what doesn't want a PDF. What they're ultimately telling me is she's saying, hey, I make decisions on Monday morning because I'm on my phone. So text me the information that you need me to know and I'll make my decision by then. I've had people say, email me. I've had people say, call me. I've had people say, don't ask me. I don't know. I'm not really the person, even though I'm the CEO. My director of X, Y, or Z, they're the one in charge of this event. I simply wanted to talk to you to see if I aligned with you. They'll make the decision, talk to them. So when do you want me to follow up and how do you want me to follow up? This is also a great question too, because as soon as they say when, let's say they say next week and they say Friday and you go, great. Well, if I don't hear from them Friday and they say email me, I email them first thing on Monday and said, hey, Carlos, you mentioned that you wanted me to email you on Friday. I did, wanted to make sure that still works. I don't know the percentage. It's a high percentage of the time. They always email me back because they go, oh yeah, I was the one who told you that this is the information you need. And that's not always a yes, but it's always not always, it's all, a lot of the times it's at least communication back. So when and how.
I love it. All right. So those are really good. Another little spin on mode of communication.
Okay.
So, Ryan, I'm a Gen Xer. I
Mhm.
think you're a millennial. Did I say that? Did I get it right?
Yeah, definitely.
And today we got baby boomers and Gen Zers. We got all these different generations. And my, let's say old lesson is, hey, it's better to talk to people, talk to individuals. But what I've also gotten pushback on is, well, Carlos, you got to understand that the millennials and Gen Zers don't like talking to people all the time. In fact, we rather just text or email, which I know is not an effective mode of communication, but that's what they're wanting. So I'd love your advice because, maybe if it's a simple message, hey, Ryan, are we going to do the podcast today? That I get. But when it's a serious message or one where I really want to get your reaction from it, text and email for me don't work great, but maybe I'm being stuck in the mud. So I'd love your advice.
Yeah, you're saying you like to talk to people. Well, everyone, we do. I like to talk to people. How I like to talk to you is very different. When I like to talk to you is very different. Don't you can't even get in touch with me after 5 p.m. My phone's off because I'm with my kids. So in the morning, I do a lot of work in the morning. I'm up at 4 a.m. I work a lot in the morning because I know no one's going to be emailing me. I do a lot of work in the Middle East, so that's when I'm doing a lot of client work there. So to say like you like to talk to people and then millennials might not like to talk to people, well, we do. We simply do it in a different way. Also, I like to share this about generation. Generation stems from the word generalization. So you're generalizing around a group. So there's always extremes, right? So to say like one generation likes it over the other, and then to say, email or text isn't as effective as communication. I don't know. I have never seen any proof of that is not as effective as being in person. I will say people might enjoy it more. People might relate to it more. Effective? I don't know. I don't know that one personally. If there's some statistics or facts to back that up, I would love to know that one, because maybe what you need to do is you need to do a video, but email them the link. You're right. I don't want to read 5 paragraphs in an email. Okay. But I very much read my email every day, and I very much might click on that link that you send me that says, hey, Ryan, I did a custom video for you. Here it is. And you send me a video via email, and I look at it and I go, dang, Carlos is so awesome. Let me respond back to him. And I might send you a video, or I might send you an audio recording. Those modes really depend on the individual, and they depend on their effectiveness. I like to think about customization versus generalization. We're getting away from this idea of mass communication that everyone gets, and we're getting back to the basics of customized communication to the individuals that we're working with. That's why all of my clients get handwritten letters. That's why they get what we call wow packages. When they get something in the mail from me, before they even open it, I want them to say wow. So there are customized ways to communicate with individuals versus generalizing it and just mass sending it out. Nobody really likes that.
I think the concept, and I did this on LinkedIn. I did a little survey
Yeah.
because core concept selling is basically people buy from people.
Yeah. Definitely.
But as I'm having other conversations with folks, I mean, we literally, me and my partner had literally a leader to say, look, I don't want to talk to you. Just send me the information. This is how I absorb information and
Yeah.
I'll decide. And
Mhm.
at first, like, oh, well, this isn't going so great. But I'm just trying to be open to the concept for this individual at this company. That's just the way they like to communicate.
Yes. People don't. Okay. I agree. People buy from people. People buy from people who listen. That's the updated saying. Okay. So if you are telling me I don't need to talk to you, send me a one-page PDF, and I go, oh, let's set up a call. You didn't listen to me. I need a one-page PDF. So it's people buy from people who listen.
All right. I like that little new twist on it. All
Yeah.
right. One of the things that I think impacts communication these days is a speed of information as well.
Mm.
We get bombarded with information all day long, right? You could spend all day just answering emails, it seems like, or Slack or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So, how do you cut through the noise, right? Because to be a good communicator, there's certain things you need to communicate back on, and there's certain things like, hey, I'm just going to let that be on the back burner. That's
Mhm.
just not important to me right now.
Yeah, so it depends on what role you play in the company. I usually mostly work with leaders who have the opportunity to change the way that companies communicate. So oftentimes they're using too many modes, so we get rid of them. Um, like this last client that we were working with, one of the big complaints was the individuals or the company, a couple hundred people at the company. Big complaint was that they got too many emails. They didn't know how to respond or when to respond. And so we implemented a very simple strategy of, if you need them to respond, they need to be in the main header subject of the email. And if I am CC'd on the email, I know that I do not need to respond. I do not need to write back, thank you for the email, and then say, oh, thank you, you're welcome. I don't need to do that. I know CC'd means it's only for my information. It's not for me to respond. So there are a variety of different things that you can put into place that you can minimize those modes. That's like the first thing that I would recommend, is minimizing the modes of communication. Okay. If you have Slack, man, don't be doing email and then text messages and all these different things. Like, figure out what your core way of communicating is. I mean, that's why Teams has done so well. Microsoft Teams. That's why Zoom has done so well, is they've put it all together in one area. The other way too is ask your team, ask people what they prefer. The other way that you can do it too is, you can say things like this, because we have this really big argument about, I'll do not conflict negotiation, but I'll be the person who'll be the middle person to say, here's what you're really trying to communicate. And they're getting so annoyed with how little they were communicating in the email, because they would say like yes in an email instead of like yes comma thank you, and they were like, are you mad at me? And you're like, no, that person was trying to be efficient, and the other person was interpreting it as like rude and blunt and harsh. So ask, can you ask like, hey, what's your style, what do you like, how do you prefer? Yeah, that's what I would recommend.
All right. Talking about leaders,
Mm.
we were talking about what makes a great sales leader, CRO. It could be any executive though.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was a little talk we had internally recently. And I said, I think communication is a top part, because no matter if you have a great strategy or a great plan or a great vision for the organization, if you can't properly communicate it. And I just love your viewpoint. Like, what do you think? And we could say that they're all of them are important. So it's not like, okay, one without the others. But
Yeah.
how big does communication play in being a strong leader within an organization?
This is something I absolutely know to be true. How we communicate is how we operate, period. So I can go into any corporation and I can look at their operation and I can directly link it back to their communication. So if they have stressful operation or their poor operation is happening, it's because it's poor communication. If their operation's clear, concise, easy, their their communication is clear, it is directly linked to back to communication. Okay. So it's not like an important thing. It is the most important thing when you're really wanting to do the business that you want. You can have the best idea in the world. If you don't know how to communicate it, doesn't matter. Um, it all comes down to communication. Absolutely.
All right, awesome. All right, hey Ryan, I gave you a little bit of a big intro. Is there anything you want to share about your background, your career, that got you to this point in life?
Hmm. Uh, I I pay attention to communication. I met this really important man in my life. His name is James C. Humes. I highly recommend his book, Speak Like Churchill, Stand Like Lincoln. And during my meeting with him, he told me something that ultimately changed the course of my career. And he said, the better communicator you are, the more influence you have. And that's it. That's the key, right? That's the key to leadership. You want more influence, get better at communicating. Because you know how to talk does not mean you know how to communicate. So the quickest way to improve your influence, the quickest way to help this world and be better at who it is that we are, improve your communication skills.
Excellent. Any ideas on how people can do that effectively? And one of them could be hiring you for their company, I'm guessing. But
Yeah, I appreciate that. There are a lot of ways. You can start recording yourself and see how you record yourself, and then watch that video and see how you are in that presentation. You can hire your speech coach, or you can hire somebody to come in and train your company, train your team. We surveyed 1,200 full-time employees in America in 9 different regions around the country. 85% of them said they would be significantly better at their job if they knew how to communicate better. And 75% of those individuals never had communication training at their company. So here's this thing that people are wanting, but they're not offering it because what are they doing? They're getting sales training, or they're getting leadership training, or they're missing the boat of what it ultimately is how do we effectively communicate to influence people to buy from us, follow us, vote for us. Those are the things that we need to do. So there's a variety of different ways of doing it. Find the person that you really resonate with, and then hire them, get them to train you, get them to figure out the formula that works for you.
I love that. I was this is a long time ago. I was at a big event speaking, and as I was packing up, one of the other speakers came in, and this gentleman said, he had written multiple books and done other stuff, so he's a much more bigger speaker than I was. And I go, any tips? And he goes, take singing lessons. And I go, what? He goes, events like this, we're projecting our voice. He goes, take singing lessons and drink a bottle of water per hour. And he goes, when you take singing lessons, it'll help strengthen your vocal cords so that you can have a strong message at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. And drink plenty of water, because every hour you're being dehydrated throughout the day because you're out there expressing yourself and talking. And those are 2 good points.
I love it. I love it. I would challenge you in the idea that he is a bigger speaker than you. None of us are bigger than the other. We all have messages that we are programmed to share based off of who it is that we are in our purpose. And so comparing and thinking that someone is bigger or better or that, like, my recommendation would be, you have something that you need to share and want to share, whether one person hears it or 1 million people hear it. You could really affect the world simply by, if the right person hears it and then they go and do something with it, you then change the world in a better way. It doesn't mean you need 1 million people to listen to you. You need the right people to hear you. So I would challenge you in not thinking anyone is bigger or even better than you at speaking, because we all have this message and or certain message that we want to share. So go out and share.
I appreciate that. All right, final questions. What piece of advice, be it business or personal, would you share with our listeners that would help them be as successful as you've been?
The most important advice, that this is the research that I do, this is everything that I study, this is my life's work. And that is understanding there's difference in seeing yourself as A versus seeing yourself as the in who you want to be. Nobody wants to listen to a podcast. They want to listen to the podcast. Nobody wants to follow a leader. They want to follow the leader. If I invite you to Denver, where I live, and I go, hey, do you want to go to a restaurant or the restaurant? Which one are you going to pick? You're going to pick the. So start seeing yourself as the in who you want to be, because ultimately when you're A, you settle. When you're the, you have standards. Let me be clear. I'm not saying you have to be the best. I'm not saying you have to be the biggest. I'm not saying you can't make mistakes. I'm saying be the. Okay, so being the means when you do make a mistake, how are you going to respond to it? I'm saying be the when you want to go after something, are you putting it together or are you making it happen, right? So it's being the and owning that nobody wants A, so why should you be? Everybody wants the, so that's who you should be. You should be the and who you want to be. Be the dad, the mom, the teacher, the stay-at-home parent, the wife, the husband, the partner, attach it to whoever it is that is your core. That'll change your life forever.
I love it. And thank you so much for being on the 1% Edge.
There you go.
If people want to hire you, get to know more about your services and what you and your team do, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, so I don't have any social media. I don't have like LinkedIn or Instagram or anything like that. Everything is on ryanavery.com. Every Tuesday, I share one strategy that differentiates A versus the. If you'd like to do that, you can sign up for that. And yeah, ryanavery.com is where you can find me.
And I do listen to your videos every now and then when I get them through your little email, and I think they're wonderful. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
All right, folks, this does it for our show. Thank you so much for being on here. Thank you, Ryan, for doing this with me. It's great to see you again. And for our folks listening out there, please subscribe on your favorite platform out there. And I wish you nothing but the best success out there.